welcome to Meet the Trainers. This is something that we are doing new at CCI. My name is Kathy Burnett, and we wanted to spotlight all the CCI trainers. We want to honor their skills, their dedication, and their years of doing this MRT training so that they can share some of their experiences with you and you can get to know them. Today, you're going to see a short video of maybe 10 to 15 minutes of an interview with Laura Gilreath, and then a published interview. Laura became an MRT trainer in July of 1997 and has years of experience in providing MRT and domestic violence training for CCI. She's an expert at guiding new facilitators through the process of learning how to do MRT and domestic violence. So welcome, Laura. Why did you become an MRT trainer?
Basically, it kind of happened that the agency I was working for in Oklahoma, they had 12 programs throughout the state. We had set up 12 programs, and we really made a commitment to train all of our staff in MRT, not just those that would be doing the groups. It just made so much sense. And at the time I was executive director, and it just made so much sense that I become a trainer. I think about that time is when they started, y'all started the Train the Trainer program. And so it just made sense that as the executive director, I go ahead and conduct these trainings as part of our new hires initial orientation. That way we could all be on the same page, even like we had a residential women and children's program, our child care workers, our people that worked in the kitchen, our maintenance, everyone was MRT trained so that everyone was truly part of the team, the treatment team, and we could all speak the same language. And I loved it because I could spend back then it was 5 days training. I could spend 5 whole days with all the new employees, get to know them, them doing the steps and the exercises, and they got to know me. And so I loved doing it. And that's the reason I was trained for my agency to actually do those trainings with my staff.
Yes, back then they were 5 days long, weren't they?
They were 5 days. They were.
Yes. What was your first training as an MRT trainer like? What was that experience? And maybe facilitators can relate to that because when they first do an MRT group, everything is brand new. But when we first trained MRT, that's all brand new for us.
That was, again, one of the first ones in the formal trainer program. And Dr. Robinson trained me, and there was no trainer's manual. We did not have a trainer's manual, okay, to refer to, like the new facilitators have their trainer's guide. We did not have the trainer's manual. And I was so nervous, Kathy. Okay. And I remember Dr. Robinson, he would just go, get on up there. Okay. You know this stuff. Just get on up there and do it. I mean, I took my notes, all these notes, and up with me up front, and I'm like, yeah, and this is Kohlberg's theory. And I would just about read. I always tell new trainers, like, hey, if you need to take your trainer's manual up there with you and look at that, that's fine. After a while, you won't need to do that. But it was different. I'm thankful that you put together the trainer's, manual and all that. And it's a lot more formal process than it was back then.
Yeah, public speaking is like a lot of people's biggest fears. Yes. And then to have so much information to have to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a little nerve-wracking when I
know.
Yeah.
What do you like most about doing MRT training? What brings you the most pleasure in providing that?
That's a great question. I love MRT training, period. But I think as a therapist, when I really think about watching the participants, as they present their exercises and do these exercises as homework, invariably they have these aha moments themselves personally. I mean, the steps actually affect them, and it's fun to watch that happen. It's like, I did not know this is how I spend my time, and I don't like it. And it's really changing how I think. It's really changing my life. And so that's, I think, what I enjoy the most is how, as a therapist, you can kind of see that happening with the trainees as well.
Very nice.
Yeah.
How have you used MRT concepts in your life, Laura?
Been doing this a while.
Yeah.
My training was back in 1990. And so that the first introduction to MRT changed my life. And so some of the main principles, I think, is the big concept that struck me hard was the concept between the inner self and the personality. The belief that there's good in everyone. And that was always my belief. I was always somehow had that ability to speak with people and see the good in people, every person. I worked in corrections for 7 years before, I went to the MRT training, and even people that were incarcerated and had done a lot of things, I could still kind of see the good. And so that whole concept that there is good in everyone, and then that the MRT starts bringing that out. So using that in my life, it just affirmed that belief, but using that personally to make sure that, I yield to my inner self. There's things that I don't think I would have done and been brave enough to do if it weren't for MRT. If I hadn't thought, well, I think that's really inner self stuff and I need to do it. It's something I've been wanting to do since I was a child. Okay. And I'm going to be brave and I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm not going to let my personality tell me. When we were thinking about these questions, because you gave them to me ahead of time, I asked my husband, how do we use, because we both use MRT, how do we use MRT in my life? The first thing he said is step 3. Okay. He says, we use that all the time, almost every day. And I'm like, we do. If I start, and he reminds me of step 3, which is great. It's like, if I start getting frustrated, he'll say, how much control do you have over that?
That's great.
Yeah. And so it's like that whole idea of acceptance and letting go really brings peace, and I know why that's a milestone step in MRT, because for me, it's something we use all the time. When I would travel so much, things happened, right? Things happen, things don't go your way. And when I would start feeling that disturbance within me, that inside, I would ask myself the questions. It's like, Laura, how much control do you have over whether the flight's delayed for 5 hours, right?
That's right.
Or the airport just closed and you're going to sleep on a bench in the Chicago airport because there's no one else, right? It's like, okay, you've done everything you can do. And I would answer myself, yes, let go of it. And then, of course, I would text Dr. Robinson, I'm practicing acceptance in the Chicago airport right now.
Can you help get me on the earlier flight?
Because I'm sleeping and the airport's closed and I'm sleeping on a bench. There's no hotels.
That's right.
A lot of other things in MRT, Kathy, just daily that I believe is so critical. And it's farther on the book, and I try to highlight it when I train. This whole concept of appreciating the ordinary things of life. I mean, anytime I start feeling upset or depressed or like sorry for myself, I just start appreciating everything around me, everything in my life, and everything changes. My mood changes, my attitude changes when I do that. And so that whole concept of boredom is kind of a different take than I've ever heard. Boredom means you've fallen back on your beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. Things that you believe in. And so, I've always been one that likes a little excitement and gets bored pretty easy. But when I start feeling bored, I think about that chapter that talks about boredom. And I think the last thing I think that I use a lot are the reality statements. Also, and looking at those, but looking at important relationships. Relationships over my life has always been somewhat difficult, right? And you got those 15 principles there on step 11. And again, so helpful just for people in general. When I train, I say it's not just for our clients, it's for us as well. That if we can look at our relationships in our life based on those 15 guidelines, it will make a big difference. And especially the last one,
Mm,
it, it it's one I practice all the time, and that's the forgiveness.
yes.
Right? Forgive yourself and others. Your happiness directly depends on the degree you can forgive yourself and others. And I believe that strongly. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
True. So true.
Yeah.
And that's a journey too, to learn how to forgive others and self.
And yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Laura, thank you for taking the time to spend with us today and letting, people that may be considering coming to MRT training or people who have already been through training or domestic violence training get to know a little more about you. And also, I asked Laura maybe 10, 12 other questions that we will publish, and you can read those in written form. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Kathy.